Hey friends, thanks for tuning in. My name's Gary and welcome to Game 1, Shot 2 of the Patch Tennis series featuring the Arturia Minifreak and the ASM Hydrasynth. Let's jump in. So this series is a collaboration between myself and YouTuber Chalkwalk Music. The purpose is to demonstrate the similarities and unique differences that both these incredible instruments have to offer, but also give you new tools and ideas to create sounds of your own. In our first video, titled Shot 1, starts out with Chalkwalk designing on the Hydrasynth what's referred to as a response patch. This is in reference to an incoming signal that I sent prior to his recording that I made on the Minifreak. Now these response patches aren't intended to replicate the incoming sound, but mostly to create new ideas that could be used for similar applications. So to get started, I received a short return patch performance that Chalkwalk placed to a complimentary video of his choosing. And as we watch and listen, let's just start to think about some ideas that we can use to create the response patch with. Let's check it out. All right, great. So what I heard was a nice lush pad that had kind of a crystallized shimmer to it, somewhat metallic. What I think that we're going to do is maybe just start out by trying out some of these oscillator types. In the Minifreak, you have quite a few to pick from, starting with your basic waves all the way through, and there are plenty of videos if you want to dive deep into each one of these, but some of my favorite, this in particular being the bass from Noise Engineering. Sounds kind of dull until you start to mess with the wave, timbre, and shape knobs, which correspond to saturate, fold, and noise. So what I think that we'll do is go ahead and just start getting a sound that we like. Or I like. Now this noise is particularly useful. Let's hear it all the way up so you know kind of what it's doing. Yeah, sounds really intense, but I like it. Just a little bit. Okay, so now that I've found a sound that I enjoy, I'm going to start by trying to create some of the elements that we heard from the return patch, and that would be, you know, that nice kind of swell in and long decay. Now there's a few ways that we can do this using the Minifreak, one of them being the amp envelope, which if we wanted to give it some delayed attack and a long release. Can certainly do that. However, if we return this attack back to 0, maybe leave the release where it's at. What I'd like to try is modulating the analog cutoff with the cycling envelope. So let's go ahead and try that. So let's move to this mod matrix here. And we're just gonna move until we get to cycling envelope and cutoff. Go ahead and select that and bring this cutoff down to 0. Go ahead and see what it sounds like all the way up, and then we can dial back down from there. Interesting. So that is because the cycling envelope has not been adjusted yet. So what we want to do is maybe lengthen the rise here, just like we would in the amp attack envelope. There's that. And now we have some room to increase the sustain, which we might want to increase the sustain on the amp envelope too, if we're planning on holding these. We're definitely hot here, so I'm going to turn this down. Okay, and maybe have the fall extend out too. That's sounding pretty good. So now let's leave that where it's at. My thought here is to start to incorporate the second oscillator, or at least a feature within the second oscillator group. So as I switch over, you'll see that you have lots of the same choices that you would. Oh, what I do here? Let me go ahead and get back to 0. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I think that what happened was I just needed to hold down this button and then it goes back to 0. So that was easy enough. Let's move over to the type knob. So you're gonna see in oscillator 2, there are plenty of similar to oscillator 1 modes. Chords has been moved. In the Microfreak, it was just a part of all of the available oscillators. Now it has been moved to the oscillator 2 section. Now, checking out these oscillators in oscillator 2, I am finding a lot of joy in the filters, which are not generative operators. They are modulating the incoming signal from oscillator 1. So that being said, let's go ahead and check out what the comb filter does. Let's go ahead and move the wave knob, which corresponds to the cutoff. Pretty interesting. And that just makes an incredible sound. Keep the gain up. That's also in the similar context to the incoming signal. So kind of that bright, metallic, shimmery vibe, which I think that we'll expand upon. All right, so you can see that each oscillator has a volume knob, so you can kind of hear how it sounds if we were to blend that in over time. Should be pretty cool. So what I'm thinking is that we can assign that to one of the macros here. So to do that, hold Shift, macro, and then I believe that you just move this volume knob, and that immediately links to whichever slider you want it to assign to. Okay, so now let's hear what that sounds like. I think you just hit macros and then you go back to turns blue whenever it's complete. Something happened here. Aha, so we want to turn this up all the way to hear what it sounds like, fully wet, and go back. All right, make sure that that's at 0, so 0 to 100, here we go. Pretty cool. So now let's go ahead and give it a little bit of pitch modulation. I think that that might be cool. Just give it some of that wow and flutter perhaps. And how we might do that is we could utilize both the LFO1 and LFO2. Let's see here. So pitch 1, 2 to LFO1 in the mod matrix. Go ahead and let's do more than we know we're gonna use just to hear what that's doing. We can pick our LFO and the rate. Okay, so maybe not as quick as that, so rate knob. I think I'll probably leave this as a sine wave, but let's just go ahead and start reducing the depth quite a bit. That might still be a little too much, so I'm going to reduce the depth a bit more. Okay, so now to get kind of a flutter, I think I'm going to move over to LFO2. And this time I'm going to have less depth, but a little bit more rate. So, and maybe we'll use a different waveform. So we can check out the waveforms in LFO2. I'm gonna go back to sine, that's in LFO1. Let's go ahead and click select to get to LFO2. And then maybe something that's a bit randomized. Now to kind of hear what that's doing, let's increase the depth. Let's increase the rate. Let's not synchronize that. Click it to unsynchronize. Right, okay, so if we go back and just a little bit. Okay, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm gonna go back to the shape knob and oscillator 1. Some of you might hate me for that, but sometimes there can be too much of a good thing. That's sounding very nice now. I think that we can move to the effects just so we can get a closer glimpse of kind of the pad sound, which is kind of characteristic of that maybe reverb and washed out with some delay, perhaps a chorus or a phaser. I think in that original return patch, I heard a bit of that phasing effect going on, but let's see if we can get away with just maybe a little chorus. So let's start at the effect slot 1. We're going to just kind of cycle through some of the effects here, see what we have. Chorus, phaser, flanger, distortion, bit crusher. We have an EQ, another EQ, and a compressor. So let's go ahead and start with the chorus. I think that that could be nice. Click to turn it on. And I always start with a extra helping of mix and then dial it back. So let's hear what that does. Already that's sounding pretty nice. Now let's just salt to taste here. So that's sounding pretty good. Let's move on to effect slot 2. We can see that we have a delay here. We can start with the delay. I would, however, like to check out maybe the distortion and see if we can just get most of our decay and washiness from the reverb. So, all right, let's check out the distortion. There's a few different modes. So if you hold shift and gotta click to turn on the distortion, then now we can see all of our different. So we have classic, soft clip, germanium, dual fold, climb, tape, and we can just try out soft clip. The gain's pretty hot already, so we know what it could potentially do. But I just think that this could get us a little bit more of that metallic flavor. Once again, not trying to replicate the sound, but just get something that could be used for that similar context. Maybe I'll want to increase the noise again. Or perhaps the saturate, maybe just dial back the noise again and maybe try some saturation. So the timbre knob is corresponding to the fold of the bass. All right, so I'm liking that. Let's go ahead and move to effects 3, and that's gonna be the bread and butter. So there's lots of cool reverb types in here, but honestly, let's see if I can show you. There's the default. Honestly, the default sounds amazing. Super happy with it, just right off the bat. Long, hall, echoes, room, and dark room. So if you, once again, want a more in-depth kind of feel for these different modes, I strongly just encourage you to check out the plethora of Minifreak videos that have dropped in the last 3 or 4 months. So you can get more there. However, for now, I'm just gonna stick with the kind of the default reverb sound. It sounds incredible. Let's just go ahead and move on. Wonderful. I think it's sounding great. I guess you could mess with the dampening. Maybe I could decrease the dampening to get more of that metallic flavor. So I think I'm pretty happy with that. Let's go ahead and stop for the response. Now let's start to think about our return track. So let's go ahead and create a new patch by old preset. Let's go ahead and check out a brand new sound here. So we have, starting with the oscillator 1, let's go ahead and check out the different oscillator types. And like I said earlier, the chords oscillator type is not available in the oscillator 1 section. To get there, we have to move to oscillator 2. So I'm still learning this as I go. I believe that I'll have to turn down the oscillator 1 section, move to oscillator 2, and then I can hear just the oscillator 2 section. And I'm doing this because I am interested in trying out the chords oscillator type. Cool, so let's go ahead and check this out. So the chords oscillator type has lots of different intervals that correspond to the wave knob here. And so you can... Let's just go ahead and pick one. And you can see now the interval that it's playing at. Yeah, so it can do some pretty cool sounds. As you could imagine, with some modulation, we could maybe make the dream work here. And then our waveform. Kind of hear that blend from saw into square into sine. I wonder if I can get out of that. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and see what we can do here. I think because I've been utilizing the macro sliders quite a bit, I want to maybe continue to utilize that concept with the interval, which is, I believe, at the timbre knob. Yep. So if we started here, but then we used the macro knob to increase the interval, and then found potentially a way to increase the decay, then I think that that might be a cool sound. So let's go ahead and try that. So shift, macro, move the timbre knob all the way up to the point that we want it to get to here. So let's hear. Maybe we don't want it to go above a certain frequency range just because it might be a little too harsh, especially starting from a lower note. Let's just start there. So let's go back out of macros. So now we have some choices. We can start with the cutoff and think about maybe where we want to place this at the beginning of the signal, the attack. Let's bring that macro down. But then maybe we want the cutoff to open up whenever we increase that that timbre knob, that interval section. So let's go ahead and create another macro here that's going to include the cutoff. So now we're going to decide how much. We're pretty much just going to open it all the way up. Let's exit there. Okay, and now let's just go ahead and see what it would sound like to have the sustain. Let's turn the sustain up. Okay, and then the release a little bit further out. But what I'm thinking is that we're not going to use the release really to hold all of our sustain after we let go. I'm actually thinking that we're going to utilize the effects section a bit more. And maybe we'll start with that so that you can kind of maybe hear what I'm thinking of. So maybe we can go to effects 2, where the delay is kind of the default, assuming you're going to use it for that, which I am. So we're going to check out what it sounds like to have a little bit of delay at the end here. Well, let's start at 0 in the amount, but then we open it up. Might sound better if I increase this. Okay. reduce the time, increase the feedback. And then there's a few delay types that we have to pick from. So let's go ahead and maybe see what ping pong does for us. Okay, not bad. Let's go ahead and see. That's sounding pretty cool. I'd like to just go ahead and see what we can do in that effect slot 1, potentially give it a little bit more, maybe chorus. Perhaps before we do that, we can take a look at the mod matrix and see if there's anything that we want to add here. So already my mind just kind of gravitates to wanting to add a little pitch drift using that LFO1. So let's go ahead and check that out. And of course, we don't need that much or that much rate either. Let's slow down the rate. That is sounding pretty cool. Let's go ahead and make our way to effect slot 1. Same thing with the chorus. We use the chorus for the response patch. So let's go ahead for the return patch. Let's think about maybe trying something new. So maybe the phaser. That's pretty cool. So I kind of like that. I do think that it's a little bit much. So let's dial that back. I'm thinking that maybe we can do the same thing on the macro that we have with the interval as well as the cutoff. We can also have the delay amount too. So maybe starting at a lower send level and then increasing to like fully wet. So let's go ahead and do that. Shift macro, move the amount knob to the extent that we want it to reach at the highest point, and make sure that it knows that this is what we want to set it to, this slider. And you might be hearing, okay, so that's good. You might be hearing a little bit of release still going on, and that's what I was kind of worried about, is as I slide back down that interval section, I just kind of want to hear the delay at the high frequencies just kind of ring out, and then maybe just not noticing the release as it's going back down. So let's go ahead and hear what that sounds like after we dial back. A little release. Yeah, you're good. Pretty cool. Alright friends, I'm feeling pretty good about this return patch, so I'm going to end it here. After this video, I'm going to create a short return patch performance and send that over to Chalkwalk so that he can prepare for the Shot 3 video. I want to thank you all so much for checking out this video. If you like this content and want to stay in touch, I encourage you to subscribe as well as ring that notification bell, but also check out Chalkwalk Music's channel. It's been immensely helpful in my synthesizer journey, and I can't speak more highly of it. With that being said, I'll see you in the next one. Peace.